What's going on, guys? In this video I'm going to be showing the VIS balance shaft delete freewheel. This is for the 2.0T FSI EA113, which my Mark 6 Golf R has. The point of the balance shaft delete is that when you're revving your engine over 7,000 RPM, these balance shafts tend to seize. The problem with that is that when the balance shaft seizes, the sprocket that drives them is going to stop, which means that the sprocket that drives the oil pump is also going to stop, since they're both driven by the same chain. I took that sprocket off, but there's a oil pump sprocket right here with a chain on it, and both of those are driven by the crankshaft, which is up here. This whole thing sits in the oil pan. I'm just giving you a quick rundown before I actually show you how to install it, but you'll see all of this more later on. So this sprocket is what moves the balance shafts. Those are the two balance shafts right there. You can see the big weight on each of those shafts. These actually spin at twice the speed of the crankshaft. So like I said, when this seizes up, this sprocket over here is also going to seize up. That's going to be it for your engine. So this is a preventative maintenance item. So this sprocket, which I'm going to open up in a second, replaces this one right here. So now instead of this sprocket turning this gear, instead this is just going to spin on its own, and it's not actually going to turn this gear. It's just going to turn on itself. So it's a free wheel that has a bearing on it. So you'll still have the oil pump turning, but you won't have the balance shafts turning, which means that you won't run the risk of the balance shaft seizing up. Okay, I got that opened up. Got a little sticker in there. Got a new replacement bolt. Since this is a stretch bolt, you need to replace this. This feels like a steel one, so you won't have to replace it anymore. And this other one is going to be a stretch bolt. I have all the part numbers for the stretch bolt, and here is the freewheel sprocket. And as you can see, I'm holding the center section, and it just spins. You can see right there that it just spins on itself. The first step would be to jack up your car and put it on jack stands safely. Make sure the car is nice and sturdy. You get the car jacked up, you'll want to remove the plastic belly pan cover that goes underneath here. Mine obviously does not have it because half of my car is missing right now. You'll then have to come down here and drain your oil. You also have to remove the turbo oil drain line. Some more oil will come out of that even though you just drained your oil. And then you'll also need to come over here, and your turbo discharge piping will be right here. So you'll have to undo these two bolts that are holding that on. So nothing is hanging on the oil pan or attached to the oil pan at all. Then you can start moving on to actually removing the pan. Get underneath here and remove the three 16mm bolts that are holding the transmission to the oil pan. Here's the first one right here. Again, these are all 16mm. So there's one right there. Goes all the way through to the pan. There's another one right here. Right, short one right to the pan. And then the third one is down here, kind of on the other side, right there. So once you have those three 16mm bolts removed, we'll then move on to all the 10mm bolts right here, holding the pan up to the block. So that one's backed out. As you can see, I already started working on that one. Okay, all three of those are loose enough for me to take out by hand now. Okay, here are those three bell housing bolts that we got out so far. These two are from the bottom, and this one is the one that goes through this really long spot over here. So it's pretty obvious when you're putting this back together, because obviously these little short ones are not going to reach through that spot, and these two bottom ones are identical. So you really can't mess it up putting it back together, and these are not stretch bolts. So next you're going to remove all of these 10mm bolts. They go all the way around the oil pan, and then there are also two all the way up in these spots right there. Since these bolts like to get stuck in that sealant, then you can't really, it's difficult to get a finger around them and to pull them out. If you have any kind of little grabber tool like this, that works perfectly for this. It's a little bit difficult to shoot with one hand, but let's see if I can do this. There we go. So that's what I do to get these out. So I only have a few more left, then the oil pan should come right down. Okay, so I got all these out. Let's see if I can balance this with one hand. There we go. There's the chain that drives those sprockets. It's dripping oil right now. You won't see any of that because what you'll see is the bottom of your balance shaft assembly, which is right here because I took mine out previously. So let me get this mounted up in place so that you can see what you'll actually be seeing. Before I put this back on the block, I'm actually going to clean off these mating surfaces of all this residual sealant. Okay, my mating surface on the pan is all clear of all that residual sealant. I now just need to completely clean out this pan so that there's no more sealant in there. Okay, so this is what you guys will see when you drop your oil pan. You will also see a little plastic piece down here, and it's mounted something like that, but you're not gonna have to worry about anything back there anyway. First, this little cover just pops out. There's 3 little tabs in here, and they'll just pull straight out. You don't really have to do much. Yeah, pulls right off. There's the little tabs. They mount into those 3 spots right there. So here we go. Here's what I was showing before. That is the balance shaft sprocket. This is the oil pump sprocket. So this is the one you need to keep. This is the one you're trying to delete. You want to break that loose, and to do that you need a 12mm triple square. Stick a 19mm socket, 12 point on the crank just to counter hold that while you break that loose. So that's what I'm going to do right now. And before I take that out all the way, I'm going to release tension off of this tensioner. So to do that, you have to stick a screwdriver right here, push in, and then when those 2 holes line up, you're gonna stick a 2.5mm hex key right through there. And you can see the slack created from moving that tensioner. Okay, there we go. So that's what it looks like with the hex key in there. So now we got some nice slack right there on that chain. So now I'm going to continue to remove this bolt, and I'm going to see if this sprocket will come out without me removing the oil pump sprocket. So I'm going to remove the oil pump sprocket as well, just to make getting that out easier. I'm not sure if it's possible to remove it without removing the oil pump sprocket, but it doesn't appear possible. So what you can do is just thread this bolt back in just by finger. You just need to snug it up. You don't need it super tight. And now you can release the tensioner so that we have tension on the chain again, and then do the same thing. Counter hold the crank and take that little screw out right there. And I believe that's a T45. Okay, so I got that guy loose. I can take that guy out. I cracked it loose, and then that key back into the tensioner. So I can get that screw out, and I can remove this guy. And now with this guy removed, there will be plenty of slack on this for me to get this sprocket off. Okay, there we go. So we got that one off, and now we can install the VIS one. Here's just a quick little side by side of the two. Let's get this one in place. Alright, awesome. Now I just need to find the torque spec for that. But in the meantime, I can get this guy back on. And there's a little straight side right there that you have to line up right there. Here's the part number for the oil pump sprocket bolt. Got my new one right here. And this is a steel bolt, which means that it wouldn't follow the same torque specs as the OEM stretch bolts. So I just reached out to VIS and I asked them what to torque that down to. So as soon as they get back to me, I will let you know. VIS said for this bolt to use 20 newton meters plus a 90-degree turn. Okay, so this is why VIS is so awesome. I just sent them a message on Facebook and they let me know how to do this. You tighten that down by, you can't really tighten it down by counter holding that, because you're just gonna spin the balance shafts and this is not gonna do anything because it spins on itself. So you can't really tighten that down the same way you can tighten down that one. So the way you do this one is you're just gonna do it hand tight. There isn't really a spec for it because that's a steel bolt, so it's not gonna adhere to the OEM specs, which is for a torque to yield bolt. What you're gonna do is just hand tighten that with your Allen, and like I was saying, this will just keep spinning forever because right now I'm actually spinning the balance shafts. So what you have to do is stick a screwdriver right in that hole right there, because that will lock the balance shafts in place. So now the gears cannot turn in there, and now you can hand tighten that. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that right now. All right, that worked beautifully. Just sticking that screwdriver right in there, locked up those balance shafts, and I was able to tighten that down nice and as tight as I could pretty much with my 1/2-inch ratchet. So now that one's good to go. So now I just need to torque that one down, but to get the final torque on that, I'm probably gonna need some tension on this. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove the Allen key from the tensioner. I did put some blue Loctite on this bolt. I did not even ask VIS about that. I figured it won't hurt as long as I put a very tiny amount on there, just that there's no chance of it getting into the bearing, just as some insurance so that that bolt never comes out. Okay, there we go. So now I just need to get my final 90 degrees on this bolt and then I'll be all set with everything. Okay, that was weird. I was counter holding with the crank bolt. I was trying to get this bolt, I was trying to turn it the extra 90 degrees after the 15 newton meters, and I could not get that thing to turn anywhere. I couldn't get it to turn at all. In fact, when I was pulling this down, it was putting so much tension on the chain right here that the tensioner was fully collapsing inward, and then all of a sudden it skipped. Pretty sure this skipped a tooth on here. So I don't know how to get that thing to turn. Okay, so as I was explaining, turning this like that compresses that tensioner, which then puts slack on that underside of the chain. And doing that when you're really trying to torque this thing down for that 90-degree turn was not good, because then this was skipping a tooth. So this, I'd turn it really hard, really hard, really hard, and it would skip a tooth on that chain. So the main issue with that is that there's just no tension on this part of the chain. So what I did was stick this guy up behind here like that, so that there is tension on the bottom part of the chain, so that that can't skip anymore. And I was able to get the additional 90 degrees using this method. So if you're using this method, there's not a whole lot of force that you're exerting on this plastic piece or on your new sprocket. Like, you can still slide this in and out pretty easily. It's just taking up some of the slack. Really not much force, so I don't think you're at much of a risk damaging the plastic piece or the sprocket. Mine are completely fine. So yeah, I got that to its additional 90 degrees, so I'm good to go. Okay, I can now finally move ahead with putting my oil pan back on. You can now move on to cleaning both of your mating surfaces on the block and on the oil pan. And once you do that, you can now get your sealant. This is the sealant that I'm using right here. And then you can start torquing down all your bolts. So you're gonna start on this corner right here with this one right here. This one's on the corner with the turbo oil drain line. And looking from the bottom of the car, you're going to work clockwise for every bolt, all 20 of them, until you get back to this one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way around to 20 right there. And then once you do that, you can get your 3 bolts that go through the transmission back on. And then you can just, put everything back together the way it came off. Fill your car back up with oil and all that stuff. Is it pretty? No. But will it work? I don't know. I would definitely start with the transmission side bolts because those are the ones that you're at the highest risk of dropping. If you drop them, they will fall into the transmission. What I recommend doing is sticking the bolts onto a little grabber tool. Now that bolt is nice and snug on this tool. I can just reach up and start threading it in with this tool. You really don't want to drop these because, like I said, they will go right into the trans. And then you're gonna have to deal with trying to get that back out. So just to clarify, what the VW repair manual says to do is to basically get all of these oil pan bolts in place, just loosely, and then get your 3 transmission bolts back into place, just hand tight. And then you're gonna get all of these oil pan bolts in sequence 1 through 20 going around in that clockwise sequence. 1 through 20, get those hand tight. Then you're going to torque these transmission bolts to their spec of 40 Newton meters. Then you're going to torque the oil pan bolts to spec 15 Newton meters in that clockwise sequence. Well, yeah, that definitely wraps this one up. Well, here I am taking the pan back off. I have to leave in like 50 minutes. So I'm trying to somehow get this done in 50 minutes. So wish me luck. Okay, got the pan off. It doesn't look like it's gonna be too bad cleaning this off. Hopefully like 10 minutes, I should be able to get that one. Let's see, on this side. Might take a little bit longer. Maybe like 20 minutes. It's actually cleaning pretty nicely. Okay, so I got all the surfaces cleaned off again, and I have that guy in place with those 2 bolts. And I have that big bolt right there. And I have that little chain cover as well. Okay, here goes round 2. Well, I just dropped my socket in the trans, so that sucks. The socket just hit a little corner as I was pulling it out, and I grabbed it and I pulled it right off of the extension. I've said it once and I'll say it again, these finger magnets are lifesavers, man. All I have to do is just reach up there and pull it right out. Thank God. Thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully this helps some of you guys. I'll give you guys my impressions on the increased noise and vibration when I have this car up and running, which should be in hopefully one of these next couple days.